Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yvonne, this is the Unravel Collective, and I usually offer channeled guidance from the Ninth Dimension Arcturian Council. But instead of a transmission today, I've decided to go ahead and share with you the journey of how I even began channeling and how the Arcturians contacted me or began communication with me, and what led up to my channeling, which I think was preparation for it, and also some of the things that have happened in the last 2 years since I've been channeling. So if you are interested in hearing my journey, please stick around, and I hope that it benefits you in your own journey. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone who has subscribed to my channel, who has been so supportive and has been listening to the messages for the last 2 years that I've been posting. And I want to thank you for all of your love and encouragement. And thank you for sending in some questions as well, which I will get to at the end of the video. This is going to be a longer video than what I usually release, so I hope it doesn't bore you. And I am excited to share how this all came about for me. So to begin, I had to go back on an Instagram video that I made about 2 years ago that was of similar content of how did this all begin, because I have the worst memory ever. I had to sort of take notes from that video to see, oh yeah, that's what happened. Oh, and that's what happened next, because I have never been able to remember timestamps of my life, So that video was very helpful. And what I'm going to do is just sort of first start off with the things that occurred before the channeling started. And I think that what's most important about all of this was that I listened to my messages, I listened to my desires, and I followed the callings. So if you are interested in doing this type of work, which I think everyone is going to be doing, by the way, this is not going to be different or weird. I think we are coming into a world where these types of abilities will be more normal. But in order for that to happen, I think you really need to listen to the calling of your heart and follow your heart's desires. So when you follow the messages, it opens the door to the next step. No matter how small they are, no matter how weird they are, no matter how inconvenient it might be, listen to your messages. So I'm going to start with many of the things that called me and that led to the channeling. And one of the first things that was called me was Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations. Now, if you don't know Dr. Joe, you can look him up. He is doing incredible research in the field of heart cohesion meditation and how you use that to access unlimited potential, unlimited power, unlimited creation in your life, in your energetic field, in your health, in whatever it is that you desire, anything you wish to create. These heart cohesion meditations are incredible. And so I got the very strong calling to do Dr. Joe's online progressive intensive, I can't remember what it's named, but I bought that intensive. I think it's a 9-week program or a 9-week progressive, and during this you do several meditations with him. And these meditations are long. They're about 45 minutes plus. And I was doing these meditations nightly with my partner Ramona. Now, I've always been a meditator. Well, not always, but I've meditated for several years. But Dr. Joe's meditations really took it to the next level. I was really able to access a new realm using his meditations and experience different sensations in my body, experience the lightness of my energetic body, experience the quantum field, so to speak, and really begin to make significant shifts within my own potential. Okay, so that was number one. Followed Dr. Joe, started doing his meditations, started opening my energetic field, started to understand how to play in the quantum field. And here's another thing that I think is super important. If you don't already do some type of energy work, I suggest that you begin to play with that and that you go and learn how to do energy work from somebody that you trust and somebody that you think is authentic and somebody that you think is honest and of integrity and that you connect with or that you feel a connection with. Do some energy work, because when you begin playing in the energetic field, again, you get to experiment, you get to access different realms, you get to slowly grow in your awareness of the energetic field, and you begin to connect with the things that we can't see. So I think that my work as an acupuncturist, as a Reiki master, and now as an energy worker that has really evolved into something of its own, um, has really helped in the aspect of being able to access the potential for channeling. So Dr. Joe was in November of 2019. I was consistently meditating with Dr. Joe's meditations, opening my energy field, opening and clearing energy centers. And then quarantine happened. And even though I was doing meditation almost every night, I finally had the chance to devote even more time to meditating. And during quarantine, a new calling came in and a new desire came in of really, really wanting to connect to my spirit guides, to my spirit team. And at this point, I was not thinking galactic family. I was not thinking Arcturians. In fact, I didn't even know what the Arcturians were or who they were. But I did have a desire to connect with my spirit guides, whatever and whoever that looked like. So not knowing what else to do, I went on to Insight Timer and I did every meditation that was about contacting your spirit team or your spirit guides. And I did a wonderful meditation that actually had me contact the energy of Jesus, which was really a beautiful thing for me and personally. And I loved it, and I was like floored and felt amazing and had this wonderful experience in that meditation. And continued to do several different other meditations. During quarantine, I also got the message very strongly to stop eating meat, which, if you knew me back then, I loved meat. There was no way that I had ever intended not to be eating meat daily. Okay, like if you had asked me, would you ever consider being vegan, plant-based, vegetarian, I would have been like, hard no, because I really enjoyed eating meat, happy meat. You know, I was very conscious about the meat I ate, and I liked it. But I got the message to stop eating meat, and when I asked why, all I got was to purify yourself. And I had no idea what that meant or like why I had to purify myself, but I went along and followed the message. It was not convenient, it was not something I wanted to do, but I did it. And I have to say that it was the easiest thing to do. I don't know why, because as I said, I've always liked meat and I thought there's no way I could survive without eating meat. But it turned out to be super easy. And 2 years in, I am about 80-20 plant-based now. I do allow myself to have meat when my body wants it and when I feel like eating it on a special occasion, or just because my body's craving it. So I am lenient about that, and I'm not rigid around any sort of rules. But it was a very strong message to stop eating meat, which I did. Soon after that, I started getting this really strong desire to learn everything about channeling, which was really strange because I got so obsessed with it. I started watching on Gaia shows, every show I could find on channeling. And it was kind of strange because I had known about channeling, but I wasn't ever all that super interested in it. In fact, we had a channeler come to our alternative therapy center a few years ago, and I was actually scared. I left the room when he transitioned into the channeling part because I was scared of what might happen or what it might look like. And it did creep me out a little bit, you know. And so it wasn't as if I wanted to channel myself. That was never something that occurred to me as something I wanted to do. But here I was, super obsessed with watching channeling for about 5 days, and learning about it and watching other people do it. And I think that why that happened for me was to show me that other people do it, that it's not crazy and it is real and it is possible, and to sort of find an acceptance around it and maybe lessen my fear around it. And I do think that that helped. I think that helped for when this started to present itself to me. I wasn't so scared. And it also showed me that you didn't have to be a type of channeler that goes into trance or like leaves your body and allows something else to come in. There are conscious channelers, and that's what I am. And that's a boundary that is very strong for me, that I am never okay with leaving my body or having somebody else come in and take over it. I am conscious, I am always here, and I am protected. That's very important to me. Another thing I want to add here is that while I was watching Gaia and all of these shows, I was beginning to learn all about the different extraterrestrials, aliens, interdimensional beings that are out there, and started to really begin to understand that there is a loving presence in other realms and dimensions that does exist, and that there are several people around the world that have experiences and that have seen and had beautiful interactions with all of these beings. And so it started to really open my eyes to what else is out there. And at the same time, I wanted to hold discernment about what and who was out there, and be sure that nothing evil or bad or dark was going to be coming into my field, but that there was discernment and protection around that. And that's also an important aspect of channeling that I still hold. And I think it's very important to use discernment. So after or during this period of being obsessed with watching shows on Gaia, I went through this, what I call an incubation period, of where I kind of felt like I wasn't really in my body, and it was a strange sensation. And I was lucky in that I got to be at home alone during that time, because my partner and my stepdaughter went on a camping trip, and I didn't have to communicate or be present for anyone. And what this period felt like was like I was underwater and I was sitting sort of in a meditation state, um, and just in deep peace. And I was grounded and very held in the floor of the lake or pond. It was murky. It didn't really feel like ocean water. It felt like lake or pond water. And life was going on around me. There were fish, there was vegetation, and I was simply with my eyes closed in stillness and peace, as I was sort of just floating, in this environment. And I felt like that for about 4 days, where I was still sort of doing what I do in life. I was still going through the motions. And again, this is quarantine, so I had plenty of time to just be. I didn't have to be at work or anything. I was just able to be in this incubation period. And it took about 4 days of me feeling really out of it and trusting my body to let it do what it was doing, to trust my body and not have to have an answer for it. Again, just allowing myself to follow the messages, follow the callings, follow the desires, follow whatever needed to be done in that moment. Hi, baby cat. Baby cat wants to say hello. So after this incubation period, it was during a meditation, and I was actually at work in between clients doing a meditation, where I had this very first sensation of something wanting to speak out of me. That this being sort of like came in, and this particular being, I make a sound before I speak. It's like a tonal sound, a tonal vocalization before they speak, as they are, I guess, accessing me to communicate. This being was the first being that I felt this very strong desire to channel all of a sudden. And because I'd seen it and learned so much about it, I wasn't as scared anymore. So I let it sort of happen. I let the experience play out. And it was funny because the first 2 or 3 times there was sort of like a syncing that had to happen between the two of us. And so as the words were coming out, it was very slow, it was very drawn out, it was very funny sounding. And it did take about 3 times for us to finally sync up and be able to talk normally like I do right now. And I still don't quite know who this being was, but this being is the one that led me to learn about the Akashic records. So they said it's time to learn the Akashic records, and at that time I really didn't know what the Akashic records were. I had heard about them maybe a couple months prior because I vaguely remembered my partner mentioning them, and then I had also, during a workout, listened to somebody that had a guest on that was talking about Akashic records, but it was on in the background. I was busy, and I play podcasts all day, every day, while I'm doing something. So it wasn't like I was incredibly focused on it, and I didn't think anything of it. But here's what's funny. So that day or that evening, I'm on my walk with my partner, and I asked her, do you know anything about the Akashic records? And she said, yeah, a couple months ago they kept coming up. So I went ahead and bought a book. It's on the nightstand. And so here's this book that's been there on the nightstand for a couple months, and I didn't know about it. We both have like stacks of books on our nightstands. So there it was already waiting for me. So I read the book. I read it within 2 days, and I opened the records for myself for the first time. And that was weird and tricky because it's your own self. So, trying to distinguish, is this just my own thoughts versus am I in the records for that very first time, was challenging. So I went ahead and read my cat. We adopted him from a shelter. So I thought maybe I can find out something about my cat. And I did. I found out some stuff about my cat, and that went well, better than doing it on myself for the first time. And then what actually ended up happening is I read for 25 friends in the span of 1 month so that I could practice and so that I could develop this skill, or so that I could know, is this legit? Am I doing this right? I don't know. But what ended up happening is that every single person I read for was floored by the information they received, was floored by the acknowledgement of their internal narrative sometimes, and internal motivations or internal struggles that they didn't necessarily share with anybody. So when these things came through in their readings, it really did make me feel like, okay, I think this is legit. I think I want to start offering this as a service. So now we start getting into when the Arcturians start to contact me. So it was soon after or during this period of practice with the Akashic records that 3 or 4 nights in a row I started waking up to these voices. And the first 2 or 3 nights I thought it was me, my own head, my own mind. And I kept saying, geez, why can't I just shut my mind off? I just want to go to sleep. The 3rd or 4th night, I started realizing that this isn't me. That freaked me out a little bit, or I wasn't sure it was me. I was like, wait, I don't think this is me. And so I asked it questions, and it responded back to me. And the thing is that it sounds like your inner voice, okay? Like the communication sounds like communication from within your own self, and it does sound like your inner voice. So being able to distinguish, is this me or is this someone else, that that obviously took a little bit of time. But when I started asking it questions and it responding to me, that's when I knew, oh crap, this isn't me, this is something else. And it was very kind and very loving, so it wasn't that scary. It was actually very soothing. And so on the fourth night, on June 21st, 2020, is when I finally got up because they requested that I channel the first transmission. So at 4:17 a.m., I got out of bed, trying to be really careful not to wake my partner. I went into the living room in the dark, took my phone with me, I pressed record on the voice memo, and I channeled my first transmission. And that transmission is still on the highlight reel of my Instagram. So if you want to check that out, that is still there, and I'm going to save it for all eternity because it was so special to me. Yeah, it was strange. They introduced themselves. They told me they were the Arcturians and the work that we had to do together. After a while, I did request that they not wake me up at night because I love to sleep and I don't like to be disturbed when I'm sleeping. So we made a pact or an agreement that I would still connect with them on a regular basis in a time that worked for me, but that I would be the one to initiate communication. And now 2 years in, they do from time to time initiate communication, but it's mostly me requesting or calling on them. And since I do weekly transmissions, the beginning of the transmission always has a personal message for me before we get into the collective message or the one that I post on YouTube or my Instagram. Some of the things that the Arcturians first told me were that I am part of the Ninth Dimension Arcturian Council, and that's kind of hard to believe, but this is what they say, and you can take it or leave it, because even though I receive the information and I do my best as a human to receive it as truth, it's still difficult to believe, right? It's still difficult when you don't have a direct experience or a direct recollection or a direct remembrance of this being true. So right now, I take it as truth because they have always been so loving and graceful with me that I don't think that they would be deceiving me in this way. But again, being a human, who knows? Who knows, right? But they did say that I volunteered to be here to do work here, agreed upon between all of them and myself to spread love, truth, and harmony, and to spread the message of the Arcturian lifestyle, to spread the message of heart-led presence. They also told me that this little eczema patch that I had on the back of my neck, it was about maybe that big. What, can you see that? That big. For about 2 years, I'd had it for about 2 years. Nothing worked. Nothing would make it go away. It itched daily. It was dry and uncomfortable. They told me that because I asked for my activation to be very discreet and graceful, they used that spot as my activation spot for the last 2 years while I slept. And that now that my activation was complete, that would go away. And it did. It went away. It never came back again. And it's been 2 years since then, and I'd had it for 2 years, and nothing worked to get rid of it. So I found that to be pretty fascinating. They did say that they did their best to respect my wishes because I'm a sensitive being, and that I requested things be very discreet because I didn't want to be scared. And I do have to say that I think they accomplished their mission in not scaring me, and that they did respect any sort of request that I have up there as an interdimensional being, as an Arcturian, and I thank them for that because the way this all happened was perfect for me, and they've always been very loving, very gentle, very encouraging, soothing, and they've never been rude or forceful, which I am grateful for and only helps me believe. My neighbor is trying to kill a fly in his window, I think. And only helps me believe that they are truly a presence of love. Okay, so that is my journey into the Akashic Records and how I met the Arcturians and how I started channeling the Arcturians. And since then, I have continued to do weekly, almost weekly transmissions for YouTube and Instagram, and continue to share the messages of heart-led presence and love, truth, and harmony. And I have since also done a quantum healing hypnosis session in which the Arcturians guided me to meet with them. They're the ones who actually told me I needed to be with a hypnotist in order to help me get to them in this way so that they could gift me something. And the gift ended up being this beautiful symbol that they slowly drew out in gold light. That is a symbol that is me, basically. They said it is the symbol of who I am, have been, and always. The symbol of who I've been, will be. Wait, hold on. How did they say it? It is who you are, will be, and have been, or something. It's who you've been, are, and will be, or something like that. I can't remember. Basically, it's me. It's probably my Akashic Records in a symbol, which I put all over my journals and, anything I want to infuse with the energy of the pureness of my multidimensional being, my interdimensional being, my Arcturian self, my human self, my all self, right? So that was a beautiful gift that I got through a hypnosis session where I got to actually see them as blue orbs of light, and that then emerged into blue beings that were very royal, and it felt like a masculine figure and a feminine figure, although you can't tell necessarily. But they had this sort of mother-father quality to them. I don't know if they were my mother or father. I have no idea, but very comfortable and soothing to be with them in their presence when they gifted me this symbol. So the last message, I'll share this with you, and I have not told anybody this, is that they did tell me I would soon be having more direct experiences with them, not just through the channeling of my voice or hearing them, but that I would have more direct experience seeing them and communicating with them, and perhaps being more aware of my astral traveling when I visit them. So they did say that I, as my Arcturian self, has told them that I am ready for this and that it is time. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't know. Now I'm going to get into some of your questions. And one of the first questions that came through was, how did I figure out how to get out of my own way? This is a hard one for sure. Okay, this is one that takes practice and skill, and it takes trust, and it takes patience, and it takes sort of this ability to separate your ego from yourself. In the beginning, when I started the Akashic Records channeling, when I started channeling the Arcturians, it's always been easier with the Arcturians, but when I started doing the records, it seemed pretty easy for me to separate myself from the channeling. Over a period of a year of doing readings, though, I started to have more anxiety about it, and I started having more fear and doubts about it. And I wanted to be the purest channel that I could be. And if I didn't feel like I was accomplishing that, it really didn't sit well with me. So this anxiety started building and building and building. And it got to a point where if I saw a reading scheduled, it didn't bring me joy anymore. It brought me anxiousness. It brought me kind of like, oh God, okay, I can do this. When that happened, I chose to stop offering the Akashic Records readings because I never want to offer readings if I'm in a space of not wanting to do it, right? Not having absolute pure excitement and joy for it. So I quit doing the readings, and I quit them for about, I'm not sure actually, I think it's been over a year, and I just now brought them back this month. And it's been amazing and it's been great. But I've also learned now that this desire to get myself out of the way, you need to find a balance here. So, yes, there is an aspect of it where you are more in the passenger seat or you're in the back seat and you're watching the car drive, you're watching somebody else drive that car. But I'm a conscious channeler, so I am there, which is the next question. Are you consciously aware of what you're saying when you're channeling? Yes, I'm very much aware of what's coming through and what's happening. And I can now come in and out of the channeling without losing my connection. So, one of the things that has changed in my Akashic Records channeling is in the beginning, I wouldn't allow myself to come out of the channeling for fear that I would lose that connection. And now I have no qualms about coming out if I need to, saying something, um, relaying something that I'm seeing visually, because I know that I can snap right back in or I can tap right back into it. So I am very conscious. Again, I never want to allow anyone to come into me and have me, I'm always going to be here. I'm always going to be grounded. I'm always going to be protected. Another thing about getting out of the way. Oh, yes. So one of the things I learned recently that gave me the confidence to come back and do readings is that this idea of getting out of the way, like I said, requires some balance. So yes, you want to have the ego get out of the way, and you want to have this desire for validation or looking good or being great. You gotta let that go. That's not something that is necessary here for this work. But what is required is your heart, your presence, your love, and your unique energetic frequency. Because that, regardless of whether or not you're trying to do it, is going to affect or impact or have a filter like effect on what's being channeled. You are required to be present. Your presence is actually necessary in some ways, in a lot of ways. Whereas I thought, I need to get myself completely out of here. That's not working. I can't be an absolute pure channel like I want to be, so I'm just going to quit. What I discovered is that I do that in a lot of my life. And maybe that's being an Enneagram 9, but I tend to try and take myself out of the equation in order to have a more pure experience. When I need to be there, I need to be fully present in my experience in order to have an impact and a more authentic expression of the experience, not just for me, but for everyone involved, including in a reading. So there is a balance here of being present, but not allowing the ego to be their driving force of a reading or of a channeling. I hope that makes sense. Hello, it's a new day. Yesterday, I had to quit filming because my phone ran out of memory, and I should really start filming on my camera, but the phone is so much easier. It's just what I prefer. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying, back to your questions. The next question I got was, a lot of people channel these days, but it doesn't seem authentic, coming from a pure loving place. Any thoughts on that? That's a difficult one to answer. I think that You know, obviously, I don't know what someone's internal experience is when they are channeling, so I can't say, you know, who's authentic and who's not. But I think what is more necessary, or more of what we should focus on, is, do I connect to this person? Do I feel uplifted when I hear them? Do I feel a resonance with them? Does it feel truthful to me in my heart? I know that nowadays there is a lot of spirituality on Instagram, and people probably trying to make a buck off that. I would hope that if you're operating from the heart and you're seeking somebody out, that you would be able to discern what was honest and what wasn't, and that it really doesn't have anything to do with them. They can do whatever they please, and they will, I don't want to say suffer the consequence of that, but there will be consequences for not being honest, authentic, of integrity, with not operating out of the heart. Our job is to stay as truthful and as close to our hearts as possible. And in doing so, I think that offers you a greater capacity to feel what is honest and what is truthful. I don't think that when you're operating from the heart, anyone that's pretending to be something is going to get past you. So that's all I can say about that. You know, just do your best to be in your own heart so that the capacity of your discernment is greater. The last question I have is thoughts on trying to channel the Akashic records yourself but not feeling tuned in. So I'm assuming that when you say yourself, you're talking about yourself. Like, I'm trying to channel or get into my Akashic records and I feel like I'm not tuned in. So this is something that requires you to not have an expectation on what it's supposed to look like. We all receive information differently. And this is why I think playing with energy work is so important. This gives you the practice to be able to see, how do I receive information? And when you begin to play with that, you can begin to develop that skill and also expand it. I happen to be someone where, for whatever reason, it was easiest for me to channel through speaking. If I try to channel through writing or through painting or through drawing, I don't really feel tuned in. I don't really feel a connection in that way. But there are others who are very strongly connected in that way, and they tap into their Akashic records and they create art, or they create writing, or they hear the messages, or they see visually a message that they interpret. So it's all about, how do I receive information, and then how do I develop that skill and get more honed in on the one that's most dominant. From there, I think that other skills begin to expand and open up for you. But you got to be willing to kind of drop expectation and see, how do I receive information? It's also really important that when you're practicing going into your records, that you don't give up, that you don't get discouraged, that you keep on trying and you keep practicing. And if you need to take a break from it, take a break from it and then come back to it when you are more clearer, when you have less expectation, or when you're less judgmental of yourself, or less critical of yourself, or less disappointed. Come back later so that you can be a clear vessel and you can just keep practicing, because that's all it really takes. Everyone has this ability. Everyone has the ability to tap into their records. Everyone has the ability to contact their spirit guides. Everyone has the ability to contact different realms and dimensions, to travel and astrally, to experience the quantum field. And we are all slowly beginning to wake up to this possibility and to develop our abilities. So I would just encourage everyone to listen to their messages, follow their callings, and take it day by day, step by step, without having some end goal in mind, but enjoying the journey, enjoying the experiences you are having now, being grateful for that now, and playing in what you are capable of doing now. The gratitude around whatever is presented to you in this moment is going to allow for greater possibility in the next moment. It opens up pathways, ideas, concepts, abilities, all of it. Everything gets opened when you allow yourself to simply have gratitude for where you are in this now moment. Yeah. So, thank you so much for all of your questions. Thank you for your interest in hearing my journey. Thank you to those of you who are subscribers and who continue to support and encourage me in sharing the messages. And I have had a lot of fun kind of going through this and thinking about how this all happened for me. And I look forward to what's next. So next week I'll have a transmission from the Arcturians, and until then I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will see you then. Bye.